libre el otro día por causa de tu amor, cristiana, que fui a parar a enfermería sin yo tener seguro en cama y me inyectaron suero de colores, y me sacaron la radiografía y me diagnosticaron mal de amores al ver mi corazón como latía. Oye, me trastearon hasta el alma con rayo X cirugía, y es que la ciencia no funciona, solo tu beso, vida mía. Ay, negra, mira, búscate un catete,
Very excited.
And how many people got stuck in I-95 traffic coming south?
Welcome to Miami.
And they didn't turn around, so thank you.
Yeah, no, we're really happy to have you here. We have a really good program. A couple of reminders. I just want to tell you that in August we're going to be back in Miami at the Life Science and Technology Facility Park, not too far from here, so we're excited about our August program. And I'd also like to invite Wilfredo Fernandez, who's going to tell you a little bit about the facility we're in tonight. So we feed.
So my friends and colleagues call me Wi-Fi. This was before we actually had Wi-Fi routers. My hashtag, my handle on Twitter is @TheRealWiFi. So welcome to the lab. I see a lot of new faces. How many of you are here for the first time? Wow. Amazing, amazing. Thank you for coming down, and thank you for fighting through traffic. So, what is this place and why are we doing this? So my co-founder Daniel Fuente and I were born and raised in Miami. We were roommates at Penn. I was working as a teacher in Washington, D.C. He had moved back here to Miami to work in a nonprofit space. And we started talking about tech and startups, social entrepreneurship, and we started cooking up ideas, and I wanted to move back. And so we said, okay, we have these ideas, where are we gonna build them? Where can we find mentors? Where can we find talent to build the idea? Where can we find like-minded people who are going through the same experience? And where can we get the education we needed to build the idea ourselves? Where can we learn how to raise capital, write a business plan, learn technology, learn how to code, learn how to design? And that didn't really exist. So we thought, why don't we create a space where other entrepreneurs, designers, developers, nonprofits, investors, mentors can share space, share ideas, collaborate, learn from each other, and create a forum, a dialogue, a place to innovate, a place to experiment. So that was the vision behind the lab. We started off in 700 square feet, about a block away, with some of this pallet furniture that you may see throughout the space. And we made enough money just to cover the rent and do free meetups, networkers, classes, etc., hackathons. And then finally raised a round of angel investment, also with the backing of the Knight Foundation, who was taking an investment in us, and we expanded 10,000 square feet. And so now we have over 100 members representing 80 different organizations. 40 to 50% of those are in technology. The rest are a mix of creative individuals, from architects, designers, developers, hackers, nonprofits, investors, really kind of fulfilling our vision. So year to date, we've had over 5,000 people come through the space, actually probably 5,080 or 90. Over 70 events, from hackathons to farmers markets, Ruby on Rails course, which will be going on this evening while we're in here. So we're really excited to bring the South Florida Technology Alliance here tonight and to see so many new faces, and hope you can engage with us throughout. So, quick announcement of the big event that we're hosting next weekend, June 1 and 2. It's a National Day of Civic Hacking. How many of you have heard of this event? Okay, great. So this is a nationwide initiative started by federal agencies in the White House. So 19 federal agencies are opening up their data, from NASA to Health and Human Services, Census Bureau. It's really incredible, as well as local government, county government, City of Miami Beach, and are inviting citizens, developers, designers to develop on that data and create solutions for better government. So we'll be hosting that event here June 1 and 2. So even if you're not a hacker developer, if you're a citizen who cares, please come here, engage, and come up with a great solution. And if you submit your idea by the end of June and the national team likes it enough, they'll invite you to the White House. So National Day of Civic Hacking, June 1 and 2, hackforchangemiami.org. hackforchangemiami.org. All right, thank you.
This is such a riot, you guys. I'm so excited because really, through the volunteer effort of the SFTA and those of you that are on the board, those of you that are on committees, just raise your hand if you will. I'd like to give you guys a thank you. A round of applause to thank everybody. It's the volunteers that come up with the content for our programs. We do these once a month, and this is just going to be a fun night, and as you can see, you're learning about other events to come. With that, I'd like to invite Jacques Hart, who's the CEO of Roar Media, one of our partners and volunteers on the board also, who put together tonight's program with Bill Dykes. And Bill, I know you might be out there somewhere. Thank you. So if you could introduce our speakers and our panelists. And
No, not yet. Tonight would not have been made possible without our sponsor, FPL FiberNet. And Lonnie promised no commercial, so I will tell you that my company, Host.net, relies heavily on FPL FiberNet, and if you're not doing business with them, stop by their booth, get a card, pick up some of their cute tchotchkes, they always got good tchotchkes, and make sure you do business with FPL FiberNet because they made tonight possible, so thanks, Lonnie. Now, Jacques. And by the way, if you guys didn't know, Jacques rocks.
I got the best email from Lenny today saying that. But once again, thank you to Lonnie and FPL. Thank you to Wi-Fi and the Lab Miami. It's wonderful to be here this evening. We've got a great program planned for you. And more important, we're going to be doing our own hackathon today. We're going to be hacking into the minds of some real leaders in the social media, social marketing, and technology space. And I think, you know, there was a number of us, Bill, myself, Linda, that brainstormed this program. And you know, what we've seen in Miami over the course of the last several years is a number of different social media workshops, conferences, events, and that sort of thing. And they've all been geared primarily to more of the communications and marketing side of things. And you know, coming from the perspective of the South Florida Technology Alliance, we really wanted to see the convergence. We wanted to, you know, understand the convergence between technology and marketing as it applies to social. And hence the name Social Technologies, the convergence of marketing and technology to build business growth. So with that, I'm actually going to get underway with the panel. There are a couple of few seats up here if anyone in the back wants to come up. And like I said, we've got a great panel that's going to be moderated by David Carr, who is the editor of Information Week. And so we're very thankful to have you, David. And I'm not going to introduce the individual panelists because you guys have too much going on in your lives to possibly do that introduction. But with that, let me turn it over to David. We do want this to be an interactive discourse and dialogue. And so, you know, I think along the way, David can open it up to questions or we can hold those for the end. But enjoy the show, enjoy the program, and learn lots, and have fun this evening.
I guess these are all live.
Yes, they're all live.
Okay.
But you do want to be as close, you have to be close to it, and then I will have to adjust it. If you're not close, I will adjust it.
All right. To be clear, I'm not the editor of Information Week. I'm the editor of the education section on Information Week currently. I'm doing a lot of coverage of massively open online courses, things like Coursera, whether that's going to rip apart higher education as we know it, as well as what's going on in other segments of education and concerns of campus CIOs. But before I got that assignment earlier this year, I was the lead editor on social business. Now, social business is kind of a marketing rubber term. I believe when Salesforce.com or IBM uses the term social business, what they mean is buy lots of our products that have the word social in them. And if you do that, you will be a social business and you will make boatloads of money. But there is also the concept that social is many different things. And social media marketing, in tune with the theme of this presentation, is only one piece of what social is to business. There's also social collaboration within companies going on, where they're using Yammer or Salesforce.com's Chatter, which tends to be, at least start in the sales team, sometimes expands out in their other environments like Jive. I'm actually working on a social collaboration for dummies book. It'll be one of those things with bright yellow cover, will come out in a little while. There is listening to social media, which we're going to definitely be hearing some more about. The idea of taking in all that conversation that is going out in the public social media and analyzing it. And this overlaps with all this technology that's been bubbling up around big data analytics and cloud computing, to be able to crunch through the entire fire hose of everything people are talking about on Twitter and find the mentions of a specific brand, or find people who are complaining that their flight is late and that American Airlines isn't doing enough to resolve the situation or to cater to customers so that American Airlines can serve those people. So we're going to be talking about a number of different dimensions of what social means to the different panelists, and hopefully we're going to get some conversation going. And I'll let them each introduce themselves, starting with Rob.
All right, that was a great intro. So my name is Rob Honda. I'm a global head of innovation for Safety Nitro, and we're a global agency with HQ in Boston, but huge presence here in South Florida. We're 11,000 people, 400 here. And I consider myself probably a hacker working on a big corporation, which happens to have a massive emphasis in marketing and experience with legacy and technology. And that's exactly what we do. We take technology, marketing, and we offer that to our clients as a turnkey solution.
My name is Fabio Diaz. I'm with the big guys, the big blue, IBM. Not everything is expensive. You know, he forgot one little product called Connections, but you know, Jive, don't worry about it. We actually, we got about 450,000 employees right now. And, well, not quite. We are the biggest company using social collaboration nowadays. Every single one of our employees have what we call a profile, right? And a company this big, one of the hardest things to do is to find expertise. So basically, everybody within our company, when they look for someone that knows DB2 or that knows marketing or that is associated to the CIO office, it's no longer a matter of sending an email out or giving a call to someone. It's a matter of using our tools and collaborating, right? So I'm here to talk a little bit, not just how IBM is using it, but also how other companies are actually leveraging the social collaboration, being banking, healthcare, insurance, all the different industries, and how they're actually increasing their sales as well as saving money, right? So thank you so much for having me here.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me here. I'm Chad Grosby. I'm with Razorfish. I work locally here with a few of our clients. Started with the firm in Seattle, a company called Avenue A. We were a technology company at the time, developing products like Atlas and so forth. So I'll be speaking towards the marketing side of it, working with CMOs and so forth on how they're viewing social. The challenges they're seeing more from the marketing side is what I have expertise in.
Also, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you guys. And with the social, so I'm a small company. I'm a small company. We have about 20 people that are building a social enhancement or social engagement platform. That platform allows companies on the panel, virtually anyone, any of the Fortune, total of 5,000, that have call centers communicate, using call center technology to communicate on the social landscape. What that means is we're picking up tweets and we're picking up posts to blogs and posts on Facebook walls, and mentions on LinkedIn, virtually anywhere where people are talking. We call those conversations. We bring those conversations in, and we don't do it on a cherry picking method. It's truly every tweet that has an impact on a company's reputation, or every opportunity to sell someone something, and that's what I'm doing with this platform, is brought forward, we rank it, and we deliver it like we would a phone call to a call center or to someone else in an organization. And as we've all called companies, when you call a company, you might go through an IVR, press one, enter your account number, and what's happening is data is being gathered about you before the call gets to a call center agent, which is a whole efficiency model, which is a whole different topic, but the same process we've been able to adopt and package that social conversation with a lot of good stuff and bring it in front of a call center agent, and they can begin engaging with you. It's truly one-to-one. It's not spamming. It's not publishing. It's not listening. We call it social engagement at scale.
Well, one question I think maybe spinning off of that a few of our panelists can address is the question of when to engage with the customers in social media, because they're talking about you. Are they talking to you? I mean, if somebody posts something to Twitter and uses the @mention for American Airlines, maybe they're talking to you. But if they're just complaining, they may be just venting. And if you then reach out to them, they may actually find that kind of creepy. I was just here having a discussion with my few thousand friends on social media, and what are you doing, Mr. Call Center Representative, butting in? I was having a good time complaining. What's going on here? But maybe Mitch, you can give us what your approach is, and I would be interested in hearing from the other panelists. Do they really want to talk to you?
So that's a truly great question, and it has I could spend at least an hour talking about our experiences, which I won't do. We've done 75 campaigns over the last year and a half, so a lot of knowledge, a lot of learning. Everything from Twitter shutting down our Twitter handles because we're not using Twitter in the right way, to truly people complaining that we're eavesdropping. So it is truly, it in itself is an art that we're documenting. So, and I can give you a real quick example in real time. Tomorrow we're going to launch a campaign for Fast and Furious 6. And as of tonight, after this meeting, I'm going back to decide whether or not we need to ask someone that's actually talking about the movie. The movie releases tonight, and tomorrow Universal is paying us to do a fairly substantial campaign. The idea that if they're talking about the movie, Universal wants to come and offer them a free song on iTunes. Obviously, Universal wants that knowledge. Universal will also offer them a pre-release DVD, sign up here for that kind of stuff. The notion that we are still debating whether or not to ask them, do you want to receive this, versus just offering it to them, that's still being debated. And a lot of that has to do with whether Twitter will allow the kind of volume they want to put out. They want to do 10,000 a week, 10 to 15,000 posts, tweets, and posts. So it is a complicated answer. There's books written about commission marketing and things like that. All I can say is that, one more thing, and I'll turn it over. The idea that it is highly demographic. We talk to teens and 20-something-year-olds, and they truly expect to talk to anybody in that demographic. And if they're tweeting about a company and they're complaining about something, it's expected. They don't want to pick up the phone. In fact, they don't even know what that means. Dial 800 number? What does that mean? So whereas we go through the different decades, and it does change. So that permission for someone in their 40s or 50s is probably much more important than the person in their 20s that, again, is expecting you to answer that.
Let me say Chad for last, because I know he has a story to tell about Carnival Cruise, perhaps. I want to get to hear these two other guys.
All right, so So my comments is really the fact that you can answer to things in social media is really not different than day-to-day communication. And the reason it's called social is because we are a social animal, we're a social community, we're a social people. And it's really not different. It really depends on the attitude, it depends on the communication, it depends on the behavior, it depends on how you engage with people. So everything that you can argue on, is it okay for me to engage in Twitter? You can just take the same question and say, you know what, I'm at the American Airlines Arena. There's something going on with the Miami Heat, and people are gathering, and there's a riot, and people are complaining. Is it okay for me, as a Miami Heat, to come in and say, I'm sorry guys, I hear your complaints, and I understand you, and here's something I can do to remedy your question, your complaint, your behavior. Provide something of value in exchange. It's not about spending, it's not about outreach, it's not about understanding. I mean, there's a lot of technology and who to focus on, prioritize it, base it on influence. There's a whole bunch of technology to understand the real meaning of that person on the other end. But at the end of the day, through technology, without technology, we're all human beings. And I think that with the right approach, I'm perfectly capable of walking into a large group of individuals and saying, I'm sorry, I'm from brand X, and I'm here because I've been hearing you have some complaints, or I've been hearing you want something, or I've been hearing you have these needs and motives, or even this passion. And you know what? We share the same passion. I'm here to share it with you and to give you something in return. So as long as brands act human, as long as brands engage with value, as long as brands behave on that matter that's welcomed, it's really no different than walking in person. And yes, now I am going to say that brands on the other end, and we've built, social centers for tons of big Fortune 500 brands, and obviously there's tens or hundreds of thousands of conversations a day, and maybe a handful, dozen people on this side to try to engage. Understanding who to engage with, why to engage with them, prioritize by really how it's affecting the brand. It's something that, yes, we'll have to go through and we will prioritize, but at the time of engagement, we're just humans and we're there to provide value.
I think one of the worst things is do nothing, right? There has to be a risk management strategy, and that could vary from industry to industry, from company to company. There's also, and we were discussing this before, maybe not everybody's created differently, right? Everybody deserves the answer, and I totally agree with it. The kind of answer that you give to that person depends on what kind of clout that person has. Is that person an influencer? Is that a person that you may not have tens of thousands of tweeters or followers, but he may have people that actually can make a difference. So the most important thing is to monitor, right? If a comment or a complaint or something is actually generating a lot of noise and it's causing more harm than basically do nothing or just reply with a generic email, which is, I think, one of the worst things that can happen, right? The important thing is to have a strategy, and how you're going to approach depending on what are you as a company and who are the people that actually make a difference on your business. Identifying those influencers and then act upon them.
All right,
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I think I'll just start by carrying off what Rich said, and that there is definitely an art and science into how you communicate with customers in the social world. When we speak to our clients, we speak more on the lines of, it's a conversation, and where you insert yourself in that conversation is more important than what your marketing objective is, if that makes sense, right? So I see clients that want to say, look, this is our sales messaging, this is when it goes out, we post it on Facebook, we post it on Twitter, but the real power is when the conversation lends itself to what your product is and what you're trying to convey your message to your customers. The Carnival Cruise Line example was a good example that recently happened. I'm sure you're all aware of it. I do have a couple of clients here, so I'm going to be very keen in what I say. They're doing great. They're doing great now. But right, we all know about the recent events that happened with Carnival Cruise Lines. They were using rating 6 at a time for listening. They were not using rating 6 at a time for listening in terms of how does the social conversation impact when you do and do not turn on marketing vehicles post a Triumph like crisis, right? When your brand is down and you do stop all your media, you do stop everything, when you start bringing things back on. So we started to do a lot of work with a couple of local firms like Consulta to do a lot of listening in terms of who was talking, and we found that the demographics really switched when the CNN and the news channels were talking about the news. It was not our clients' core customers. It was, the conversation went from Florida, female, 90% positive, 25 to 55-year-old, to New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, predominantly males, and lots of jokes. And so we knew, we're not going to turn back our retargeting, we're not going to start our sale messaging until we can listen to what the customers are saying and say, look, now the conversation is back to our demographic. It's back into Florida, it's back into females, it's back into positive. And although we hit a lot of bumps in the road afterwards, it just kept going up and down, but what we found was that research and that data that we were getting real time from the social listening was just spot on with what their TV agencies would come back to them later with, traditional agencies I should say, and say, look, this is the impact. So now we're looking at all right, now we have this real-time data to measure impact. How can we be more agile and adapt more quickly, I guess, to the needs of the customer?
Well, it also strikes me that one of the phenomena, I think one reason we talked about the concept of social business is that the consumer out on social media wants to interact with the whole company. So, or maybe the company needs to be able to be listening and interacting in multiple ways. What I mean by that is, of course, there is the marketing conversation. In some cases, there may be sales leads that are appearing in social media, and you have to, actually, I think, figuring out when to intervene in a sales or engage in a sales context may actually be trickier than figuring out when to engage when somebody is complaining. But there are product development leads that may come out of social media about what people like, what people don't like. So your product development, your innovation teams need to be tuned into this in a whole different way than the customer service department, than the marketing department. And also there is this concept of when we get the query in from the consumer, or we get the interest or the sales lead in from the consumer, we need to be able to have smooth handoffs within the organization. I think that's where the social collaboration potentially plays a role. But what I actually hear in practice is that that's all a great vision, but what people have actually installed or services that they subscribe to are a hodgepodge of services where they have 20 different social profiles. Just the employees of the company have different social profiles, and the handoffs, maybe aren't as smooth as they ought to be. Anybody here to comment on that, or does that even sound like a right good frame?
I'd also like to give a pitch for linguists over here. We spent the last 2 years also, one of the projects that we did to build the platform was what we call the relevance engine. The relevance engine actually does exactly what you're saying. It decides what is this conversation about. What linguists also gives us is even a breakdown down to a conceptual level. So is this person angry? Are they angry about a product? And then they need tech support. So that gives us a way to route, we call that routing in the call center world, but we're going way beyond the call center and typically tech support or customer support. This could be a benefit to product management because someone could be talking about and through the linguistics, relevance engine combination, we're able to say this is a pretty good idea, and this should go over to product management. This is a great thing for marketing. Wrap up what I was saying that our relevance engine lets us not only determine where and what the message or conversation is about, but it also lets us decide if it's real, is it human? And that's something very important to understand. I think we all see those that are involved in listening and monitoring. A lot of that data is skewed. You can look at, even at the carnival example, I'm not sure if a relevance filtering model is used, because you're looking at monitoring, listening, everything including spam and anything published around that. The data could be skewed. What we do, and obviously we don't want to put spam in front of the live agent. That's a very costly process to do. If we continue to let it, well, that's good, that's good. We typically are looking at about 20%, or 1 out of 5, maybe if we're really lucky, maybe probably less than 20% of a fairly rich data set. So let's say 100,000, what we call conversations, are ripe for taking. We remove spam, we remove dupes, we've done a lot of that stuff. Even to that point, we still are only seeing 20% of the really right kinds of conversations to reach.
And David, you touched on a point about collaboration, right? So just to expand a little bit on that, TD Bank, basically, anybody that works for a bank, basically those are customers of that bank. So they decided to implement a social strategy within the bank called WOW, right? And that was open for every single employee. And a lot of the tellers, they start reporting some of the situations that they were having on a daily basis as suggestions. That became like a suggestion box. But within the technology, they were able to vote on that comment. And they selected, the top 50, the top 100, they took to upper management. And a lot of those suggestions are actually come into place and are having a true business impact for the bank, right? So other companies, CMAX and different banks in Europe, Bayer, Bosch, they have to use the social collaboration mainly to proactively go ahead and get those things before they actually happen, right? When it comes to social media, I think there's a lot of reactiveness. Right, and I'm not sure if that's where you were going from a collaborative.
Well, also the idea of having smooth handoffs within the organization from the people who are doing the listening and the monitoring to people inside the organization who can do something about those issues. And it also strikes me that one of the things when we talk about technology and social media, we're talking about social media as data. As corporate data. And there are all these disciplines bubbling up. All of a sudden, there are job postings for something called a data scientist, which is an advanced database guy, but somebody who knows analytics technologies, how to deal with large amounts of data. And it does strike me that often the social media is the province of the marketing department, or that's the way where it's come in. And IT may not be as involved. IT may not be cut out to cope with this kind of data either. But how do we make sure that there are the right people involved with the right technical skills? And do we even have a decent supply of people with the technical skills to deal with social media in a more sophisticated ground? Maybe Rob, you can help with that.
So you touched on quite a few different points, and as we were talking before, even this question, the first thing that came to mind is that regardless of social media, brands always have to be situationally aware. They have to be contextually relevant. So conversations are not one-offs, and it's not because linguistically we analyze that they're complaining or they want to buy or they're a lead. We really have to understand the context of the whole conversation, the context of that moment, who they're talking to, the history of that conversation before we can engage. We cannot just jump in and say, "Hi, I heard you say, you said angry, I don't like you," and and expect to know the entire history about why or how did they get there. And once we understand context, and that's actually, it's not hard to do, you just have to have the mentality of taking something and exploring a little bit further before you take any action, right? Not being really impulsive. And once you do that, we help a lot of our brands, especially big brands, to work through workflows and all those things that have to go through legal clearance and brand clearance and all that stuff from big brands in order to engage. But actually, it helps a lot when you see a conversation. What's more important to be really is the immediacy of jumping in and trying to alleviate that conversation without any context, or having the right people, like you said, in the room, or digitally in the room, in order to engage properly. So, where does social play in a company? It's actually a tough question to answer, but typically a lot of the big companies, they are creating social listening centers or social dashboarding. And then from there, most of the companies are not, they have this rule set, so when they're allowed to engage and when they have to bring in additional resources, and they're in charge of routing that conversation to the right place to make sure that the person gets the support and the attention that they actually need. That's all.
Anybody else have something to touch on for that?
I think a lot of it comes down to the leadership as well, and they believe and want to invest in social listening as a terms of how it impacts their marketing. We talked about the product. One of the things that stands out to me was I was watching CNBC the other day, and the CEO of Yum came on board and said, they're talking about the new waffle taco. And I launched it. Yum. Yeah. The new waffle taco breakfast sandwich, which is a waffle wrapped in sausage with egg, about 400 calories. But anyways, the first thing he says when he's on CNBC is, look, the first thing we do is we measure the social impact of these products. We see if there's a lift in traffic, people are talking about it. That determines if we're going to expand more stores. He said they did this with the Taco Bell, the Dorito, right? The Dorito. And he said it produced almost 5,000 jobs based on the stores that they opened for that. So I think if you ignore it, you're going to be in trouble, right? I think the smart brands are really harnessing that. Carnival's really about it.
But at the end of the day, it's to your point, who owns social within the company? What function social needs? And you said that the product team can get a lot of social insights, the marketing team can get a lot of feedback from marketing campaign and real-time optimization, and sales teams can get leads, and the IT team can get actually complaints or early detection, early warning systems. It became it's nothing but a lens into what happened in the real world through a digital lens. That you can augment, you can see, you can monetize, you can digitize, you can understand what's happening through the everyday world and drive to the right department. It's something that's going to become imperative in every company.
All right, some people out here are either checking their phones or tweeting about us. I hope you're saying nice things. So
we're going to track you down because we have the technology to do that.
So I hope we've touched on some topics that you're interested in, but there are probably others that we haven't hit. So I do want to provide an opportunity for questions before we get too much farther. Sir.
How have you all positioned social in more traditional or old school industries where they may not be so receptive to social media, i.e. banking, maybe manufacturing? What do you say to obviously direct-to-consumer products, very innovative, really contacting the end consumer, but more than traditional industries? What are they doing in social?
David, would you repeat the question? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, what are more traditional industries who aren't, hot young startups working out of a co-working space? How do we get the banks and the manufacturing companies engaged in social? Or what do we see them doing in social?
From a social collaboration, one of our largest customers is CMAX. right? For those that don't know CMAX, they produce cement, right? It's a chemical industry. You wouldn't think about an industry like that ever becoming social. And he's the CEO, and well, actually the CIO has traveled around the globe just to collect awards on his team, right? The idea was, we have several different silos developing products, and a lot of them are actually developing the same products. How can we put those silos to actually talk to each other without having to be on the conference call with different time zones and so forth, so on? So they actually are.
But that is more of an internal collaboration story. I mean, does CMAX have a story for Twitter? Or is there a dynamic Facebook page for CMAX?
No, not from a social media perspective, because mainly they deal with other companies and within themselves.
Well, I mean, business to business might be a topic that we should touch on too, but I do want to give people a chance to respond.
Chris, I think in those more traditional conservative environments like banking and manufacturing, we're seeing a start in customer service, social customer service. So, for instance, our banking clients are looking for that younger demographic that's not going to call a 800 number to complain or go to that, and they want to pick up that tweet, right? And they want to address the tweet. We're also doing some real basic things around increasing wallet share. Banks want that young consumer and that credit card, that person that can get that first credit card. Those are very similar things. People are complaining about credit and whatnot. That could be a very good marketing opportunity. I can't say we've done that yet, but we're just beginning to talk about that. So that's in banking, and you can carry it through to manufacturing as well. Manufacturing customer service issues probably first off, where if they're servicing their customers and the customers are using social media to voice their opinions, that's a great place for manufacturers to start engaging.
I saw a hand back here as well.
Yes, I may be unique in this room, but I service a couple of nonprofits, and I am the IT, and I am the marketing, and I am it, right? So I was really hoping to hear more about people like me who are the department and how we can facilitate this. I don't have other people to collaborate with, so not passing things on. So how do I listen more? How do I respond? Because I've got these nonprofits that I need to engage with our members or get other new people engaged or reach out. And I don't really have a background in this, and I don't know, like I use Hootsuite so I can listen, but I don't hear anything from you kind of giving me a tip on how to be a better person.
Okay, so I guess the question would be along the lines of recommended things like Hootsuite, things that can be obtained with relatively little IT support, preferably at a rock bottom price.
Can I just add on to the question, just because?
Sure.
So you talked about verticals. So horizontally, right? So you're talking about a vertical, but at a low end in terms of revenue on the horizontal side, right? So at what stage in a business's growth, considering we're here in the lab, right? So there's startups. When do you start to look at that? How do you approach it as a startup, as a small business, as a mid-tier? So how do you grow into Carnival and all the big and the movie theaters and stuff? So maybe that dovetails on your question.
So the question is small and nonprofit, but hopefully growing organizations. What's the best way for them to tap in? And you guys probably don't have, your customers are all beyond that stage, but you probably have, when you go home for Thanksgiving, I bet you get questions about what people can get inexpensively. Any suggestions?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. You always get that family member friends saying, "You work in marketing, and what can I do to engage in social media?" And yes, it's something that my company, Sapient and IBM and Lies probably don't do. Nevertheless, they're like Hootsuite. There's a whole bunch of free or inexpensive social media tools. From a personal stuff, I probably will use Hootsuite. I'll use Google Alerts. I'll use predefined Twitter searches and feed them into some RSS feed that I can get on your tool of choice and start getting that daily feed of liquidity. I'd love to hear your thoughts on if you have an inexpensive product, because at the end of the day, depending on your nonprofit volume, just understanding if people are talking about you is enough to go out and reach out. If there's a lot of volume, then you have to understand a little bit on context and what's going on. But even more so, what people seem not to be doing enough, and I'll suggest to start doing a lot more, is listening not directly for branded terms, not directly for those terms that are specific to your company or people complaining about your specific brands, but understanding your vertical, understanding your situation, understanding your the motives that people have into the related areas. So, for example, Coca-Cola, one of my clients, we do a lot of listening for them, and it's really not about Coca-Cola, even though there's like 500,000 mentions of Coca-Cola a day. They're really more interested in knowing how they can engage in people's passions and how they can engage in people who are talking about lifestyle, talking about celebrities, talking about sports, what moves them, and understand the opportunity to engage with them through some value that Coca-Cola can bring to the table. That's obviously a lot more complex, but for a nonprofit or a small company, you can actually target that specific listening activity to a small region. So try to understand what are people talking about sports on my micro location right here within a 20-mile vicinity of Miami, and how can I engage on a local level to give you a lot more leverage that you can use in massive tools. And all that hyper-local engagement will create that relevance within people. And when you reach out, you have a lot more pull than if you're using a massive tool from a massive brand.
But I would also suggest maybe just investing some time in learning just the base platforms themselves. You can do Twitter searches that are narrowed by geography, for example, to see just tweets that are coming from Miami. And I don't know what your nonprofit focus is, but that would have keywords related to that. You might be able to find out in terms of market research, things that way. Learning some of the advanced search features on LinkedIn in terms of finding your way to donors would be useful. And there certainly are a ton of tools that are offered on this freemium basis where you can use Yammer for social collaboration. And our IBM friend may say it's not quite as good, but if you're trying to coordinate with contractors, setting up a Yammer group and inviting a bunch of people in is a pretty good, effective thing to do. So, a few thoughts there. I have here as well.
You guys have talked about managing risk with some of the examples up front. Can you talk about some examples of actually focusing on the top line? How can you use this tool to gain customers and grow the market share? You don't have to use trade. Just things that have worked and things that haven't worked.
Okay, so the question is how to use social media to move the top line, not just minimize risk.
I'd like to talk about a pilot we did a year ago for General Motors Chevy Volt. So General Motors spends, or the Chevy division spends $7 million or more on search engine optimization. And they understood that people would be searching for electric car and things that would make direct sense and paying for those AdWord keywords. But we came to them, and this was what I call our indirect approach. And that is, how about everybody talking about green energy, carbon footprint, gas mileage, and those are people that will probably not be searching for electric car. So the idea that, and again, we've been cycling at the top of definition marketing, we were pretty successful at talking to people in green energy discussions and introduced a YouTube video on a Chevy Volt. And of course, that can be directly correlated to the increasing the sales of Chevy Volt. And I have literally hundreds of examples like that. But it's that finding those conversations out there for an opportunity market.
Yeah, and with that, it's back to the point of what I was trying to raise before of understanding passions, understanding relations between passions, and trying to understand correlations. So I don't know how many of you, and maybe raise your hands, how many of you have heard of a company called Bluefin Labs? Not that many. And Bluefin Labs is a small startup, or was small. It was acquired by Twitter not too long ago. And what they did, which was extremely smart, was listen to keywords on social media about TV shows. And then try to listen to everything else that people were talking about TV shows, everything else that we're talking about. So they'll try to find correlations of everybody that's watching, Mad Men versus everybody that's watching Vampire Diaries versus everybody that's watching, I don't know, even a brand new movie that's out there. What else are they talking about? And do they like Coke or do they like Pepsi? Or do they are they Democrat or the Republican? Would they buy expensive clothes or cheap clothes? Do they like black or white? And then start creating those different segments and bringing that back to the brands. So they're probably going to come back to the brand and say, you know what, maybe you should do a media buy on Desperate Housewives. Why? Why would I do that? Well, basically because 75% of the viewers that watch Desperate Housewives like your product or a potential buyer of your product. And using social, which is a wide open lens into conversation analysis, and trying to take it one further, understanding what drives people, what drives behavior, what drives some of the motives that make people pick, and correlating that with some of the brand or business objectives that we have actually can go a very long way and move that offline on a very different way.
Somebody signal us if we're starting to run long on time, by the way. We doing okay so far? We good? Okay.
Go on forever.
10 more minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, hold on. The kid has a question.
I'm just saying the battery on this thing is low.
Don't worry about it. That's my son. I'd be curious to, I'll throw this to Rob first, but maybe others will have input on it too, is maybe you can say a few words about the application developer's perspective on social in terms of apps, mobile apps that can tap into these social networks, apps that you can embed in Facebook, or I think Google Plus has some capability for that too. What are some of the ways that you can wire these things up and program them and do intelligent things with social media as programming medium?
Well, it's a wide open question.
Yeah, well, narrow it down for us.
All right.
And tell us something useful.
All right, so social, from an app perspective, there's a few things. One is using social networks as identifiers, identification, for example. Instead of asking people to create a brand new user, you ask them to log in with their Facebook profile. And just by doing that, why don't you give me access to all your Facebook data while you hide it? And typically people will say, yes, of course, it will save me a step of, authenticating, learning your login. And at that point, you don't necessarily have to, but you have wide open access to everything that they do on their Facebook. And you can mine that, and a few years ago it was against the law against Facebook policies, and now it's wide open, you can go ahead and do that. It's a great thing to do. Next is, the same thing you can do with Twitter, but especially when an app perspective, Facebook is built in iOS, you can just ask for a Facebook permission to access your profile, you say yes. People do it intuitively and impulsively, and that will grant you wide open access to everything. You can use companies such as your company to analyze all the conversation, analyze all the thank you. Analyze what they're saying, get all the insights, and use it to your benefit. And like I said, I can go forever. Another one. specifically from a developer's perspective, is more the constant social listening, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper, obviously. So any developer that has access to doing some experiments on Amazon and throwing some data on, like, purely technical, from Amazon DynamoDB, getting access to Twitter searches and throwing them in there, and using that data to customize and personalize experiences. So we've been talking a lot about how can we use data to better target, how can we use data for business benefit, but at the end of the day, it's really not about, there's a trade-off. It's not just about business benefit, it's about a value exchange. And you use data, such as social data, to provide a better, more usable, more friendly experience to all your customers. And that's what we haven't even got into it, but social CRM, understanding, accessing a single person on social media, going back, understanding what they care about, what are they talking about, what makes them tick, what frustrates them, and use all that information, not from a pure media and advertising perspective, as we obviously should, but also to provide some type of value and some type of personalization that they'll get some value.
I was going to ask Mitch, do you use apps of some sort to get additional information out of consumers, or are you really focused on just on more of the listening engagement?
We're more capturing data. We actually deal through our own crawlers. So if a post is done through an app, we'll pick it up either through our own crawlers. Most likely, though, we're buying 90% of our data comes from the net rating 6, Alterian, we call them tried or true data providers, and they're the ones that were scooped by Google many years ago. They had great search engines, and they converted the search engines into now social monitoring, social listening engines. They're all very good, and they give us data. So that's how the data is coming in. I wanted to mention on the app side, though, we have, it's not relational, but we have a social extract mobile, which allows, again, routing to that person in the company. We're about primarily B2C, although B2B is part of our model as well. But the ability for the conversation to pop up on a social interaction app on a mobile device allows virtually anyone in the enterprise to engage. And that's really, I wrote about that 22 years ago.
Chad, I'd be interested too. I don't think you're the guy who writes apps, but do you work with people who write apps? When do you find that to be useful? What kind of role does that play in your strategies?
Well, the last time we did this, I was on fire. We did an ad really too soon for the market. We put Carl's search functionality within Facebook. And what happens is that people aren't going on social to buy, they're going on social to talk, they're going on social to see what their friends think. And we invested heavily in trying to make Facebook an app with Facebook commerce tool. And it missed because we did not understand at the time that it's really just about being part of the conversation, not trying to steer them into a funnel or a booking path.
More questions from the audience? Anybody?
So you mentioned media buys is one way to engage back, right? So you gain that intelligence, and now you engage through media buys, you have some intelligence to that. How do you actually target, how do you do that engagement directly? It sounds like that's the whole bread and butter of what you're trying to do. You're trying to connect these people. I mean, what is the creeping factor? I know you started with that. I mean, are you actually getting into somebody's feed immediately? Is that the other way to engage?
Let me clarify. Everything we do is in the public domain. So we're not going on someone's private Facebook page, or if it's a private tweet, we're not going to engage with that. So they're already out there in the public domain, and they've done it for a purpose, most likely. So the creeping factor, really, I heard that a year and a half ago. I haven't heard it very much in recent months. So I think we're evolving from a social media world into this. If you're going to be out there in public, be prepared.
And what are those public channels? What are they? Is it just a keyword stream on Twitter?
Well, Twitter itself, other than a private tweet, is all.
Right.
obviously Facebook groups, company groups, open pages, blogs,
So they don't have to like your brand already, so they already have to subscribe to your brand, and that's where the conversation
But
happens.
they could be on a Facebook group that is just about, say, cruising. So it's not brand specific. It's this Facebook group cruising, and they're talking about Carnival or RCCL.
A quick question around behavioral targeting and remarketing and that sort of thing. Is there an ability to, and we've seen this in the last couple of years, for brands to drop a cookie on a user's computer that after the fact that they visited their website? Can you then tie that back to social? So is there mechanisms in which they may have come to your website, perhaps gone through your booking image or whatever the case might be, and then you can reach back out to them in Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn, that sort of thing. Is there a connection that can be made between behavioral and retargeting and social media?
So the question was, is there a way to retarget people on social media that have been on your website or that you know something about? The answer is yes. So it depends where, but you obviously heard about the Facebook retargeting program for vendors, or maybe if you haven't heard, for people who haven't heard, Facebook opened up their platform and their media buy specifically to retargeting programs integrated with existing ad networks, where if I was exposed to an ad on any other atlas or double clicks of the world, and I clicked on it and then go to Facebook, there's an ability for that to be integrated and get retargeted based on something that I already expressed that I have an affinity or a willing to buy or some type of interest on.
Just as a jargon buster, what's a retargeting program? Because I'm not familiar with that terminology.
Okay, sorry. Retargeting program is, so targeting a media is trying to target a specific ad to you. Retargeting is based on existing behavior, serving another ad knowing that you already clicked on something before that you expressed an interest before. So for instance, if you go to the Target.com website, on Amazon is great. You go to an Amazon website and you browse for something that you want to buy, say Buffalo or you're and you end up not buying it, and then you go to any other website that's affiliated with Amazon or Target in a specific case, the ad that you're going to see is going to be about the trip to Cancun, or it's going to be about buying those boat clubs that you never ended up buying before, because we know who you are, and we know you have been browsing these things, and we know you haven't converted yet. We're trying to retarget you to try to complete that transaction. And it is happening now on social networks as well. The other little piece that's happening on social networks that I want to bring up that's somewhat related to this, it's not about retargeting, but it's about behavior targeting. There's a lot of media buys that's happening on Facebook that's using the massively rich demographic and attributes that you have on Facebook to try to target people like you. So there's a lot of media buys that go to, for example, Nordstrom to buy a specific purse, and they track back the conversion and they know who buys online, and then they go back and try to see what are the attributes of the people that have bought that specific item online. And it may not be as simple, it's, a 35 to 45-year-old woman with 50,000 to 150,000-year-old income that have been buying these purses, but it's actually is people that like a specific type of music or like a specific movie or like a specific event, and we have all that rich data through social graph, and we start doing media buys against what? Let me see everybody who likes the specific movies that live in the specific states, serving this ad, and we've seen at least like 100% increase in conversion rates towards specific commerce on Facebook buys, for example.
I've gotten a signal that we should wrap up. What was that, 200% conversion rate? That sounds like a good number to wrap up on.
If you want to learn anything more about that, just come to Sapient, we'll hook you up.
Okay, all right. I think these guys will be around for a little while. Thank you everybody. Thanks for inviting.
round of applause to our sponsors, FPL, the Lab Miami, a great panel and discussion this evening. I certainly learned a lot. I know the taco waffle was born from social media, and so I hope you walk away with a lot. I will say all this will trickle down to the small and mid-sized business level very soon, and these tools are becoming very, very accessible for all of us. So I look forward to seeing you guys in social media. Thank you. A couple more announcements before we wrap up the evening. Thank you.
And we do want to take a picture with the panel. All right, make sure your cards are in the fishbowl, please. Cards in the fishbowl. FPL FiberNet has provided an iPod. It's a really small iPad.
I'll give it back to you.
Mini.
Tons of your cards.
It is the latest version, by the way. This is not like last year's regifted Christmas present. Or maybe it is. You're putting your card in for an FPL FiberNet iPod. Mr. Tom Chris from TWT Telecom, one of our platinum sponsors, will be picking. Wait, one more card. One more card.
Okay, stop. Okay, go.
And the winner has a yellow back on it. Stan Brown from Ambit. Must be present to win. Stan. If you left, you can't win. Seriously. Is Stan here in the back? Stan? Stan once? Seriously, you have to stay. All right, Tom, good job, buddy. That's a funny one. Carl Padilla. No, he cannot win. Must not work for the sponsor to win. Here you go. Juan Werner, sales manager from Merritt Carpet. There you go. Congratulations. Third time's a charm, Juan. Good job. All right, another quick announcement. Golf club is not to hit David on the head to have him stop, although I considered hitting Rob on the head. There is a golf tournament, the Saltwater Technology Golf Tournament, which will be held at Jacaranda on November 1st. First, for all you salespeople who don't like events on the 31st. If you're interested in sponsorship, participation, please come see Linda, or Lonnie, or myself, or Bill, or anyone else on the board with one of these funny new little badges. Beautiful new badges. Give yourselves a big hand for showing up tonight. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. We'll see you next month.
Oye, me dio una fiebre el otro día por causa de tu amor, Cristiana, que fui a parar a enfermería sin yo tener seguro de cama y me inyectaron suero de colores y me sacaron la radiografía y me diagnosticaron mal de amor.